There he is.
Hey,
Welcome,
Scott.
Jim.
How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Good to see you. Sorry I couldn't be there in person, but as you know, this time of year, pretty likely I'm eating many of my meals at the desk. Got that little conference coming up in a couple months, less than two.
Absolutely.
You look so little. I'm gonna reach out and grab you.
Ouch! Ouch! Don't hit me. So Jim, how about we start with a little? Why don't you take it away for a few minutes and tell us a little bit more about yourself and RealComm, if you don't mind first.
Sure. So RealComm will be celebrating its 25th year, and I kind of say RealComm and IBCon in the same breath. IBCon is the smart building conversation that we started about 15 years ago, which came out of RealComm, but we knew we wanted to get beyond just the commercial individuals, the IT executives of the real estate industry, and we needed to reach into facility managers and universities, so we started IBCon. So 25 years, this year we're expecting to have over 2,000 people from around the world, 250 speakers, and exhibit floor I think is almost sold out. We're going to have 180 or so exhibitors, so probably the largest gathering of smart building technologies anywhere in the world, coupled with the real estate information management solutions, the property management and lease administration, all the systems that eventually will become one system. So we're excited. It's going to be a 4-day event. We got pre-con going on, sold out exhibit floor, as I said, some of the best speakers in the industry. And it's probably going to take on a little bit more serious tone this year because, as you're going to see in my presentation, I think we've got some great opportunities coming, but we also have a few challenges that we have to get serious about.
Well, let's jump right in, shall we, Jim?
Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to fly through it, and then if you've got anything you want to add to it, just say stop. And hopefully we can get through it quick enough that we might be able to take a few comments from the audience. All right, so it has been a journey. I've been on it for about 25, 30 years. Met Scott probably 15, feels like about. One of the best guys in the industry. A leader, not just because he's smart and knows business, but a leader because he knows how to share and how to get people to collaborate. So Scott, congratulations to you on all the great work you're doing at Cochrane. So.
Thank you, Jim.
All right, so a little bit of the bad news. So this comes in preparation for our conference. We talked to 200, 300, 400, 500 people in preparation for this conference. Howard sends out thousands of surveys, and this is where this information is coming from, as well as reading the same articles you do every day in the Wall Street Journal. So challenges. I'm going to start with challenges. There is a pending commercial and corporate real estate devaluation cycle coming, which means loans are coming due, and with new interest rates, they're going to be very difficult to refinance. Major leases are getting canceled. Buildings are half empty. We're already seeing people hand bank buildings back to banks. And with all this is going to be defense. And so if you can imagine a person with a 50-story building, if they're playing that kind of defense, they may be a little hesitant to invest in building automation and all the innovative stuff. The good news is, it's primarily the office sector with a little bit of retail, and there's plenty of other buildings out there that will pick up, and fill out the gap. But we have to be aware. And by the way, this really hasn't even started yet. The smartest people, one of them, which we're going to have at our conference, says the big part will start in about 12 months, and it could last 3 years, and the whole cycle could take 5 years. So I hope I'm wrong. I hope all these people are writing these articles in the Wall Street Journal are wrong. But as somebody who deals with buildings, you in the audience, you should be aware of it and you should follow it. And then most importantly, see if it impacts your orders and your inventory, and not your inventory, but your prospects and your business. All right, next major trend we're seeing. Cyber's been an issue for 5 years. The nation state component of it, the big countries who may not like us, that's getting bigger and more serious. We're going to be spending a lot of time on this at our conference. It's one thing to have a cantankerous employee try to hack you, or some mischievous kids, but when you start getting this kind of muscle, and PS, they may not be coming after buildings specifically. They're going to potentially go after larger built infrastructure projects, but we're seeing even a growing threat within the built environment, the building sector. And so it's something that is bigger and more difficult to understand that we've seen. We've got an incredible group of ex-DOD, Navy, all sorts of different intelligence agencies, people helping us try to figure this out. And this topic will be discussed in the real estate cyber, the REC Cyber Forum, or the RealComm Cyber Forum, in which REC provides most of the content for. We're going to be handling this topic. All right. The growing dominance of China tech, I don't know if you've ever heard me speak. I've been watching this for 20 years. I've now partnered, or RealComm's partnered with an organization called the Special Competitive Studies Project, being driven by Eric Schmidt, former Google chairman. And he wrote the organization, I really encourage you to go see it, wrote a white paper that talks about the trajectory of China on things like quantum computing, quantum telecommunications, artificial intelligence, facial recognition, 5G, wireless, as well as a host of other technologies that on the current trajectory, they're saying by 2030, they could actually pass us. This is not good. And so I think it's something that it's going to be a nation effort. Everybody's got to get on board. You got to understand how serious this competitive threat is. And competition is good. And it should keep us up a little later at night and get us going a little bit earlier in the morning. But we have to take it serious. And all you need to do is go to Google News and type in China Tech, and you'll see what we're talking about. Again, we're going to be talking about this in a big way at the conference. Scott, any comments so far?
No, Jim, keep going, bud. I'm saving mine for a couple more of your topics here.
Okay, smart building, skilled labor shortage. Ken mentioned it. We are doing everything we can to get people interested in this. Unfortunately, the built environment doesn't attract a lot of the tech talent like the tech companies do. I don't know if you all know about an organization called Stacks and Jewels. We have embraced them. We are raising money for them. It's a couple guys out of New York that are going into communities that may have never had access to this kind of job opportunity, and they're teaching them building automation skills. If you don't know them, you got to learn who these folks are. And please, we're accepting all donations on their behalf. We want to write them a big check at the end of our conference to make sure these young kids and even people in their middle ages who never had opportunities, they're being shown and taught how to deal with building automation, and they're doing extraordinary work. So it's a problem, but I also see some opportunities on the other side. All right, next one. We've been talking about this one for years, the disconnect between IT, OT, and IoT. It's getting better, but I've been in meetings in the last few months where there is still a disconnect between who owns OT in an organization. Is it the IT team? Is it a separate team? Do they collaborate? Is there dotted lines? And we've got to deal with this organizational issue. Before we, as well as the technical issues that we're dealing with, we've got to make sure that the organizations know who's on first and who really owns this. All right, the comprehensive, we have standards sort of, but now that IT is being overlaid on OT, we've got a lot more work that needs to be done as far as getting standards. So devices coming out of the boxes from the factories understand the standards. And it's as easy as installing a printer or a scanner on your network. I came from the IT background, and when I had to install different devices, an air conditioning unit, a lighting fixture, or a door access control should be thought about as a device on a network, just like a printer, scanner, or a PC. And so, we're not getting there without standards. And I think this is where the OT environment has to bring their knowledge to IT standard bodies, and collectively we got to get together and get this accomplished. All right, IT practices are being adopted by the OT community. This is now I'm on the positive opportunity side. As Scott said, we are in a new era. Okay, if it's not attached to a network, and if a network isn't at the core of your strategy, that's the old way. It's got to be network based. We deploy the standards of an IT network. We deploy the cyber standards of an IT network to this OT technology community. And we have a new era, just as Scott had said. Okay, so I talked about the potential recalibration of the real estate market. Once that's done, and it's going to be painful. I don't know how painful or how long it's going to last. Like I said, some people are saying 3 to 5 years. But through that, and when that's done, everything on the other side's got to be smart. It's going to coincide with ESG. It's going to coincide with better operational efficiencies. So smart is here to stay, and it's never going. We're never going back.
Jim,
that's very good news.
Jim, yes. I'd like to add in on that if that's okay.
Absolutely.
So Jim works with some of the largest commercial real estate property holders in the world. Jim, could you share with everybody what you share with me as to your frustrations in terms of what you hear from them in terms of trying to get these solutions versus the availability of contractors to do it, and the disconnect between the two? Could you share with the audience, because most of these folks are contractors, and I think it'd be good for them to understand these opportunities that are actually there's no one there for a lot of these big real estate companies. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Right. So let's break it down into two distinct categories. One is the technical side. Do we have the technology to, the modern technology stacks that we need to create a truly next generation integrated, interoperable, IP-centric smart building? Okay. So that's the technology conversation. The other is the organizational, meaning inside of an organization, who owns the OT side? Who owns the IT side? IoT, the Internet of Things, wristwatches, and smart sneakers. That's a whole other conversation. So the other side of this is organizational inside a company, but then it's also alignment within the industry. As you know, Scott, I have been trying for 10 years to get the integrators integrated with CIOs and other groups at the conference. And we put everybody in that room hoping for chaos. And I think we really made some headway last year where, I literally, by brute force tried to get physical bodies next to each other. And I think a lot of people realize that, oh my gosh, the integrator community, the people that are going to make this happen, the people we need to go into these buildings and make them smart, they've been in the room the whole time. And it's not just CIOs and integrators, it's property managers, it's facility managers. Real estate organizations, by their nature, are compartmentalized, but technology is forcing them to come together. Okay, and so the opportunity for everybody in that room, come to the conference, walk around, find a real estate owner operator, don't try to sell them something, ask them who they are, what their problems are. And there's many, many integrators who've been in our community for years, and they will tell you, not me, that the opportunities that came as a result of those beers and those conversations in the hall, priceless.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay, did that answer the question?
It sure did. Perfect.
Okay, cool. All right, modern smart building platforms, we've got some really cool technology. I mean, we've had cool technology, and the way I call it is the old disconnected, disparate, then we've had the interconnected for the last 15, 20 years. These new modern platforms that are coming out, they're basically rewriting the rules on cloud access, on data architectures, on connecting the printer or the HVAC system to the network. And they're really taking a modern IT approach. And they've been out for a few years, and that's going to be another big topic at our conference. What are these modern architectures, that allow you to plug devices in, if you will? Oh, and by the way, if your access control company goes out of business, how do you unplug it and plug the new one in? And so we're excited that during COVID, people were not sleeping. Technology kept evolving, and we've got some brand new, I don't say brand new, they've been around for a while, but some new and exciting platforms. And I would suspect they're probably in that room with you. So,
Jim, I imagine too at your conference, there's going to be some surprises in some companies that are really investing into the software side of this business, correct? Some very large companies, right?
Large. Well, and the thing that I'm most proud of, and again, we try to be, a very we'd like to look at the whole ecosystem. We don't want just one part of the ecosystem in the room, because then somebody goes to a different conference and it takes 3 years for the message. So in our exhibit hall, we are proud. I think Lisa said we got like 45 brand new companies nobody's ever heard of. And then we've got those companies been around for 5-10 years that have come out of .com or a little bit after and have really done a good job. And then we've got these industry giants that have been around for 30-40 years that are a really critical part of the ecosystem, right? So you got small, medium, and large all on the same exhibit floor. Hopefully the vendors are talking to each other as well as the end users talking to the vendors, because that collaboration is going to result in acquisitions and mergers, and we'll probably have 185 plus vendors on that exhibit floor, within 7 weeks from now. So yes,
Jim, another trend I want to hit on real quick on this too is how many of these vendors are using cloud-based solutions? Have you noticed the increase in the availability? It feels like there's a huge growth in that area. Could you speak to that a little?
Yeah, well, I started a cloud company in 1999. Okay, so I'm a believer in cloud. It was an enterprise solution for a brokerage company that was all browser-based and SQL backend at the time. So I'm a believer in cloud. And frankly, it's taken everybody, maybe the Fortune 50s moved fast enough, but the rest of the world, it's taken too long. Okay, so yes, finally, everybody's recognizing the merits of the cloud. But I will tell you that, because of what I do and the stones I got to lift up, there's a whole new paradigm coming, and I don't know when it's going to take hold. But now that we've got the cloud, we've got distributed blockchain sitting on the sidelines looking at us and saying, really? And so we're going to be having, I don't know if we'll have them this year, but I've been in some pretty interesting discussions with blockchain companies that are bringing a whole new approach to this. So yes, cloud is where it's at. You got to be in the cloud. Edge devices play a role in all this, keeping some data in the building, some to the cloud. But this whole blockchain idea is also, next 3 to 5 years, is going to play a role in our industry.
Exciting.
Yep. Never ending. Never ending. All right. ESG, as Ken mentioned, it's the carrot's going away and the stick is here. We've tried to encourage people for years to do this because it made sense. It made business sense. And a lot of good leading companies did. But now with all these regulations, specifically the SEC regulations on ESG that everybody's waiting for, they're supposed to be on May. Hopefully by our conference, they are out and we're going to insert a session on it. I was on a call, ESG call yesterday, and it's going to be a pretty big stick. Okay, and these organizations are going to be forced to report, and that means how much carbon is your building producing, how the different 3 stages of ESG, where do you lie, what are you planning, and they think it's going to have some real teeth. We'll see, but everybody in my world is really watching and keeping an eye on that legislation.
Jim, for those of you in the audience, real quick, how many of you know what ESG stands for? And be honest, please. So it stands for Environmental Social Governance, and it's a new trend in corporate America today. And fortunately for all of you, we're going to cover it tomorrow in great detail. Lauren Scott from Acuity Brands has put together a fantastic panel. So we have a section tomorrow dedicated on this topic, and I strongly urge any of you who are interested in it to attend. So thanks for that, Jim.
Yeah, and this is my 3rd rodeo on the E of ESG, on the environmental/energy side. I've seen starts and fails going back to probably 2000. I am hoping and praying that everybody takes it serious. There's no reason a building needs to be lit up at 3 o'clock in the morning with 4 cleaning people in the building. There's no reason air conditioning needs to be blasting on a Saturday afternoon when 2 people are in the building. We have the technology. We've had the technology. We've got everybody in this room that's capable of fixing this problem. And I think we're going to get some help from the whole ESG movement. And again, you got to watch legislation and pay attention. Okay, 5G CBRS. I understood you had a great conversation with Bedrock yesterday. I think Michael Osmond gave that, one of the best guys out there to talk about it. We are going to have a pre-conference event on 5G, and it's not just 5G for your cell phone. That's the consumer side. We're focusing on the in-building side, so we're going to talk about 5G, 6G, wire, 802.11, Wi-Fi. Where does that play? How do we get voice data? Oh, and how do we attach all of our building automations devices to a 5G network? Cybersecurity. There's a growing group of people who believe that 5G and those CBRS in-building wireless networks are going to be the network of choice for building automation. So this is not a conversation you want to avoid. It's been going on for about 4 years now, but it's starting to really pick up some momentum. This is a main topic at our conference. And if you're not aware of 5G and the private network side of it, I'd really, really, really encourage you to start paying some attention, because I'll make a prediction. 3 years from now, even less, you're going to be connecting devices up to 5G networks.
And we learned yesterday from Mike at Bedrock that Bedrock here in Detroit plans to implement one of the first 5G buildings in the Midwest. They're in the process of working on that as we speak. And with that, Mike mentioned in terms of BAS, what's the big advantage? Guess what? That means that we could essentially, if we had 5G in a controller, you'd have a free path to move your data. No wire, no worries about Wi-Fi, any of that, which means essentially zero cost, right? Versus having to run a network. So think about the impact, what that could do to just BAS in terms of bringing application controllers around a building, or being able to wire it without having to wire it, right? So huge advantages coming with this.
And this is one of those things where you just got to pay attention, a little attention to history. I'm old enough to have been through technical paradigm shifts. The most notable mini computers to distributed PCs. I think I sold the last mini computer in the first distributed PC network. The confusion, the tension, the lies, the scandals, because everybody, mini computers were trying to hold on to themselves, and integrate, or IP networks were making their play into the market. It's the same thing with this 5G. They're now looking inside the buildings really serious. Okay, and if you need a standardized, I shouldn't say easy, a deployable network that you want to run building automation devices off of, in addition to voice and all the other things, 5G or 6G, they're already talking about 6 and 7, which, I want to get my hands around the 5G first, but this is not an area that a systems integrator can ignore, just not. Okay, I want to keep moving quickly. AI, everybody, Ken mentioned ChatGPT, artificial intelligence applied this, and this is starting getting, and this is where everybody in that room, if you don't have IT people in your companies, as a buildings controls person, you're going to have trouble understanding AI. You may have, as these networks get more complex, if the ratio, when I asked this question 5 years ago was how many IT people do you have in your team? Maybe 1, 2, the leading companies, maybe 30%. You got to get more and more IT personnel into your building automation integration companies, because more and more of this stuff is going to have a technical bent that's outside of the controls device. AI is one of those areas. This is a crazy new field. I've said on many of high-level conversations on this, it goes over my head. I understand it conceptually, but when I see or I hear people saying, the programmers saying, I have no idea what it's doing. That's pretty scary. Okay, so if the people who wrote the AI platforms don't know what the systems are doing, that gives you an idea. There's a lot of opportunities, but there's also, I should have put this one in the challenges side. We got to keep an eye on this, or you're going to have buildings taking control of themselves, which may not be a good thing. All right, along with this compression in the real estate market, these economic challenges, they're going to start beating the drums. They already are on increasing operational efficiency. Oh, and when these people drive to these buildings in an hour commute, they better have new experiences. All of these operational technologies and these experiential technologies are going to be on these networks and are going to be part of the integrator's role and responsibilities to making these buildings smart. Smart buildings are going beyond the normals, HVAC, lighting, access control. It's going to include everything from drinking fountains and parking gates and all sorts of things that people are going to want to be including in their smart building strategies. That's it. I'm sorry I went over a little bit, but I think we're close.
You did, Jim.
22 minutes and 40 seconds.
No, it was fantastic. So Jim, I guess in closing, you talked a lot about a lot of big trends, but I mean, you also, if you were to narrow in on this crew, which is your integrators, right? We talked to these integrators. What's your message to them as you say goodbye here today? What would you say to the integrator community and their future?
Okay, so, and I'm going to leave, 20% of it's going to be a pitch to come to the integrator roundtable at the end, but I'll leave that at the end. So here's my closing thoughts. I came into this smart building industry not from the building controls or the building system side. I didn't know what HVAC stood for when I started, okay? I had no clue on how complex an access control system could or could not be. My background was IT, but when I first got in this industry, and in 2002 wrote an article called Connecting Buildings and Processes to the Internet, when I look up at a ceiling and see lights, when I look at a door and see access control, I see IP addresses, and I see all these different things as appliances on a network. So my number one piece of advice would be bolster your IT experience in your organizations. Make sure you're paying attention to the big IT trends, the AI, the 5G. Those are communications and IT big picture stuff. But at the end of the day, it is going to impact what you attach your devices to, what data you get out of those devices, and then what you do with that data, and ultimately the control that you offer in a smart building scenario. So that's my message. Integrate more and more IT. And a great place to do that, if you don't mind me pitching for a couple seconds, we've got the cyber forum, we've got the integrator roundtable, we've got the hybrid immersive office, we've got, how about another topic you guys haven't heard yet about the low voltage electrified building. We've got the PoE consortium, Power over Ethernet consortium. Not only are we going to run, attaching devices, but we're going to be making them run on low voltage as opposed to AC. You talk about solving global warming and climate. You got to pay attention to low voltage conversation. So my pitch is, please follow ControlsCon. A nice next journey would be to RealComm and IBCon, and I don't think you would be disappointed. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jim.
Thank you so much. Thank you.